All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Ono Live Coffee and Cigars live stream that happens here on Thursday nights. It's the Thursday Night Hang. How y'all doing? Welcome back. Today, what is it? Today is May 22nd. Can you believe May is almost over? One more week. It's Memorial Day weekend, and it is almost over. Mom's with us. What's going on, Mom? How are you doing today? Good to see you. All right, good. What's happening? How's everyone doing? We're here on a Thursday, and we've been enjoying pretty warm weather recently here in Maryland, and the last couple days it's become rainy and like 50s. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've actually got the heater running. The heater is on here. Can you believe that? I just because it's just too cold for me. It's just too cold. I don't want to do any more of that coldness, and I've just had enough. Devin says, "Wow, 8 p.m. on the." I try to be prompt typically, but I know we've had a couple delays these last few weeks with my aunt and all that. Last week I was not able to do the live stream because I was in the Boston area with my aunt, getting her ready to bring back here to Maryland. We brought her down last Friday, and she's now here in Maryland, and getting settled in, finding her groove. It's tough. It's tough to be in a transitionally phase, especially when you're a little bit older. She's my aunt, so she's a little bit older than us, and imagine like yourself, at whatever age, even now or any time in your lifetime, that you just told that, oh, you can't live alone and you have to live with everybody else and you have to change the way you do things. You can no longer live on the way that you want to live. That's going to be a difficult pill to swallow. So, it's a lot of working together and moving forward together. That's what it's about. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? What's going on there? Devin says, "Hey, all to everyone. How's it going? Hope you're going well." So tonight we're having some coffee and cigars. As always, our coffee tonight is actually this coffee called the Bounty Oasis. And if you watch the morning show, you've probably seen this at one point. It was a while back. I got this from the guys that own a company called Roasting House in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I ran into the guys and I was like, hey, they're like, hey, we have some coffee for you. And they gave me this coffee. It's their Bounty Oasis, and it is a anaerobic process coffee from Colombia. So we're going to get into that today. So it should be kind of interesting. And then our cigars, our cigar for the week is because this past weekend was the Preakness, the 150th running of the Preakness Stakes here in Baltimore, Maryland, the Pimlico Racetrack. It is the last Preakness that's going to be held at Pimlico in its current configuration. Their plan, they say, is that they're going to, I think they've already begun. They're closing Pimlico to the public, and they're redoing a lot of it. And they're going to put a lot of money into it and renovate the place. And the place does need a lot of renovation. There are certain sections of the grandstands that were probably built in the 1920s, and they were condemned decades ago. Like no one's been sitting in those areas for decades, and we're talking significant swaths of grandstands for the, what do you call it, for Pimlico. George Shamans, what's going on, George, man? How are you doing? How are you faring out there on the patio in this chilly weather? I'm so disappointed we got chilly weather again. I don't know why we have chilly weather. We were having such pleasant weather, but now, Devin says, sorry to hear about your aunt. I certainly, you know what? It's all about family, man. It's all about family, and you always work together, and it definitely has had its challenges, but like I said, we move forward. We move forward together, right? George says, I was at the Preakness last Saturday enjoying a Padron 1964 tonight. Nice, nice. Yes, so tonight's cigar is the Preakness 150 from Stolen Thrones, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But as always, let me know what you've got besides George here, what you're smoking and all that. Yeah, and George Brightman says it's it is unreasonably chilly. I don't know why we're getting this kind of weather. It's very crazy. Oh, and George, this first one. Good evening. Yes, last race at a whole hilltop. Goodbye, au revoir, adieu. Yes, good times, good times. It's interesting. I grew up here in Baltimore. I've only been to the Pimlico racetrack a few times, and I actually grew up in a neighborhood called Pikesville, which is pretty much on top of Pimlico racetrack. So we were very close proximity. But horse racing has never been a big deal for me. My next door neighbor, Elliot, his uncle was a big horse person, like even owned a couple of horses, was super into it. But and they always went to the races, but I just never went along. I just never got to go. And I finally went to Pimlico a few years back. Been there a couple times. Got some free passes right before the Preakness. So in the week leading up to the Preakness, you get to go around and get tours. So I just kind of wandered around. And then I went to Laurel Racetrack, not to where they're going to be having the Preakness for the next year, perhaps 2 years. Laurel Racetrack is down in Laurel, Maryland, and they're going to have the Preakness Stakes there. But my friend had a birthday party and wanted to have a birthday party celebration at Laurel. So we kind of, he got the grandstand party room or whatever they call it. We had a nice, birthday meal and some gambling and got to meet the jockeys. And, we won a couple rounds. It was kind of fun and kind of exciting. I really kind of enjoyed it. So really, really kind of fun in that respect. Tony's with us. What's going on, Tony? How are you, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. George is asking, George, hopefully you're enjoying Padron paid with your Preakness winnings. That would be excellent, most excellent. All right, so let's get into our coffee today. We've got this coffee. Like I said, it's from Saudi Arabia, from a company called Roasting House. And I've known these guys for quite a few years now. And they got nice packaging, and this what they really are, what people are really into in the specialty coffee world are these things called anaerobic coffees, or which is a low oxygen fermentation, or they want to get into like co-ferments, so they're adding different additives to the fermentation process during the processing of the coffee, of the green coffee, and it's giving unique and interesting flavors. Some people love it, some people hate it, and I'm kind of in the position where it's like, I mean, some of it's not necessary to my taste, but I also think that we need to always be experimenting to move forward. Like when the very first time that I met Rusty's mom, Lori, at her farm in Hawaii was back in 2008. And at the time that I came there, Lori, in 2008, was already doing co-ferment. She was testing out all kinds of things, pineapple juice, Pepsi Cola, all kinds of different stuff to ferment the coffee with to give it some kind of additional flavor. So I've been around it. Surprisingly, I've been around it for a very long time. It's very interesting, and I'm totally not against it, but I know a lot of people are. So what can you do? What can you do? George says that I am enjoying the Padron, unfortunately not from Preakness winning. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I'm sorry to hear that. I was hoping you'd be talking to us about the winnings that you made by betting on journalism for the trifecta, and you would now have had like you would have been buying those big boxes of like, you know, super rare Fuentes and like, telling us all about it. And well, there's always the Belmont, says Georgia. Of course. The Belmont is what, next week, right? Because it was not this coming weekend, but the weekend after, I believe, right? It's every 2 weeks once the Triple Crown begins. Okay, so let's have a look at this. This, like I said, is what's called the what's it called? Bounty Oasis. And let's look here. It's a Colombian coffee that it's supposed, as you can see here on the label, it's got some coconut, milk chocolate, cherry notes, and this is a natural anaerobic fermentation, so naturally processed, which means they're not taking off the husk of the cherry. They're leaving on the cherry and then putting it into some kind of controlled environment fermentation where they're reducing the amount of oxygen that is happening during fermentation, which kind of highlights different characteristics or something like that. The coffee itself is grown at 1700 to 1900 meters above sea level, and has a bunch of heirloom varieties from Colombia. And it's really interesting. As you can see, they've got interesting packaging. I kind of dig it, this 60s funkadelic style. And then they've got the outer sleeve. So they were kind enough to give me some food all the way from Saudi Arabia. And at the time that I was walking around the show floor and ran into them, Mike Rosales was with me. I called him up. I said, hey, man, because we were in Houston. I said, hey, Mike, you want, because Mike's really been into coffee these last few years. And I said to him, hey, man, why don't you come down if you have time to the show? And he's like, what show is this? And it's the biggest coffee trade show in the world, so you should come. And so he came down and got him some free passes, and we went around, and he got a bag of that as well. And also, when we were walking around, we were there on a Sunday, so the show closes on a Sunday. And here's the thing: if you're at the show, man, and you want to score some coffee, you can score a lot of coffee. I think we got Mike 30 pounds of coffee. It was pretty crazy. Like, So, anyway, we got some coffee there. George One says, absolutely, it's at Saratoga Spring. Oh, they moved it. There's not a Belmont. Okay, okay. Are they also renovating Belmont? Is that what's going on there too? Oh, and because the trifecta featured two favorites, it was a low payout. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. That's too bad. Well, I mean, either way, it was too bad because unfortunately George did not win. By the way, Belmont is always 3 weeks after Prima. Oh, okay, okay. And yes, it's a weird year because they can't run the same distance up there at Saratoga. So Saratoga is, I'm presuming, a shorter course. Is that correct? Or shorter track, should I say? All right, so let's get into making this coffee. I've got already pre-staged here in my little Kogu container that I picked up while we were in Houston at the show. So this is a little travel kit that you can have everything in here. I think I've showed it to you guys before. There's a lid here in case you want to use the lid. And then there's the brewing device itself, which is a conical type of wire brewer, right? You put that in here and then you twist it so that it locks up and doesn't fall back down. And then there's a little brewing, whatever you want to call that. Ooh, why is that not coming out? That's what I was afraid of. I guess there was a little bit of water at the bottom of the container, so that doesn't work very well. Anyway, as you can see, there is a little container here, and it has a little lid here to help contain it, which containment has not been very good today. We have not been very good with our containment. Because there was I didn't check to make sure this was dry. A little bit of water here made it stick. I used this setup this morning on the main live stream, so it was just sitting around after being washed this morning. So I guess it didn't dry out completely. Let me just put that back here together. Get all the coffee back in. Precious coffee, we don't want it to go to waste, right? Waste not, want not. All right, now, what we can do is we're going to take a grinder. We're going to use this company that has these brewing devices is a company called Kogu. They're from the Niigata province in western Honshu in Japan. And they make some neat products. I really kind of have been following them for about a year now, and I really find their product just to be an interesting thing that I wanted to explore. And when they came to the trade show, I was really excited because I wanted to see their stuff. George loves the Kogu. We really do. It's the transformer of portable I would have to agree with you on that. Devin says, smoking the cream donut from the latest Pravada box. Oh, and how's that coming along for you? All right, so let's get the handle. There's a hand grinder, and you guys know I hate hand grinding, but I've been doing it because I wanted to see what this is like. And so what you do is you open up the little container. It holds about 30 grams of coffee or so more than you could use for one 12-ounce cup. And it's greater than what this will hold is greater than the capacity of this. So I like to use my hand and just kind of give it like a funneling effect. And I'm still spilling. Oh gosh, I'm still spilling everything. All right, that's good. Oh gosh, there's a lot of spilling happening here. There's coffee everywhere. Okay, put that aside. Put the lid back on, and now we're going to grind. Now, one of the things about this is that it's got two chambers. Right, there's a conical burr set here from ceramic conical burrs, and then they've got a pre-staging sifter, so you can sift out the very fine coffee from your regular batch to help improve and give better clarity and less bitterness. Right, so we'll just anyway. George says, Tony, I'm smoking the new Fausto T110. Do you have them yet? Ooh, Fausto T110. That's very interesting. speaking of the T110, the T110 was a cigar originally that was started by a friend of mine working with Pete. My friend that actually introduced me to Tatawai back in 2004, Marvin Chang. He runs the program at our field company within the Foodland chain in Hawaii. And actually, I just saw Marvin this past weekend on Saturday because he was in town for Preakness, and kind of all correlates to our stuff today, our cigar today. And I'll get a little more into that, but interesting. Okay, so now we've got that there. Now, all of that coffee has gone into this mid chamber, and there's that sifter there. So we gotta shake it up. Ooh, ooh, shake it up. And that should sift out the small particulates into the lower chamber. Right, so there's more. There's more that was in there earlier. Okay, good. Now we've got the rest of the coffee now in here. So what we're going to do is we got to get that ready for our brewing. So we've got a kogu here. Devin says that he's smoking the cream donut. Oh, I saw that already. So let's get that back. He followed up with something. Excellent. Monday. And Devin says the roll is tight, but the flavor is good, so I cut it above the nut and I'll smoke them separately. Oh, so you got two pieces out of it? Is that correct? Devin says that the Fausto's always good. I agree. Agreed. I remember when the Fausto first came out. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so we're gonna get they got Kogu filters. We're gonna get the Kogu filters, and let's get that out here. Now, I don't think Kogu is necessarily, from my understanding, they're not truly doing anything totally revolutionary. You know, they're doing nice quality products. A lot of it with a focus or nod to outdoors. Like they're really, I think as a company, they're really into outdoor products like things for camping and stuff like that. I think that's really what they like to do. And because they're from Niigata, they focus a lot on like metal work because there's a lot of metal working going on in Niigata, evidently. So their filters they got nice quality filters. There's some good, I don't know if you can see that, but there's some good like grain patterns in them. So nice quality paper. And as always, I like to fold over the edge. Not that that necessarily makes a difference when you're using wireframe brewers, because you don't have the side walls that you'd have like in a regular ceramic or glass or plastic brewer. We just kind of sit that in there. See, that's the problem with this one. You got to be a little bit. You got to be. Don't be too forceful with it, because otherwise, it's just a slight turn before it releases. So you got to be a little bit careful. I'm just going to put that in there, and then now we're going to shove that in there. Add the coffee to hold it down. I don't know if that knocked out on the end. Okay, and then there's some coffee in here, so we want to make sure that we keep it level. Oops, and try not to lose that. Okay, that's a little bit irritating. I wish they made it a little bit tighter now, a little bit tighter. Now, instead of us doing the normal thing that we have been doing in the past, where we've been, doing the whole let's heat up some coffee or let's heat up some water, I thought that we would utilize a little bit of a cheat. Now, sometimes we've used the fellow Carter thermal mug to keep the water cold. But what I thought that I would get today, we've been talking about in the morning show, is this thing that I've used at Spro for many years now. This is the Zojirushi Tough Slim. And this model is actually like 10 years old, 10 years plus or so. And these are like thermoses that you can use for coffee, for water, for anything. And you can keep it hot or cold. And they have a little cup here that you can use. And the greatest thing about this, right, is like, look at that. It doesn't come out. You don't have to unscrew it. All you have to do is press this button. And when you press the button, turn it this way, it opens up in a spout. And then when you want to close it, you press this. See this tab that popped out? Like, see, watch it. The tab pops out, and then you close it. I learned about this because a lot of chefs that I know were using these to hold sauces. Let's say like they wanted to have a hollandaise sauce, a béarnaise sauce, and they want to hold it at temperature so it doesn't break. They would put them in, they would whip them up and put them in these, and it would hold it for like, an hour or two. And then they would make another fresh batch and rotate them out. And I was like, oh, this is great. So this can be what I did is I boiled some water and I put it in here. And that's pretty much how we're going to brew our coffee. We're just going to take the hot water from the Tough Slim and use that as our kettle for brewing. So we'll put that over here. Okay, good. Good. So like I said, you just got to open up by pressing this button. And then now, hot water, we can just pour over. Little blooming action going on here. Really lovely. Tony says the Herrera Esteli Brazilian Maduro Gran Toro, and yes, the original Diet Cherry Pepsi he's having. That's nice. All right, excellent. You're not disappointing. George Juan, I don't recall you saying what you, oh yeah, you did say you were smoking the Padron, and not El Wednesday Wise Man today. I'm kind of surprised. There's some nice, crisp and sharp aromatics, kind of very like fresh, like fruity kind of aromatics, but like more of a sharp fruitiness rather than like some kind of berry fruit. Maybe a sharp berry, like maybe a raspberry-ish, blackberry-ish kind of aromatics going on here. Now, you notice when I'm not really paying attention to like how much time or how much water I'm pouring at each time. I'm just trying to keep a constant pace of water over the coffee to always keep extraction going. I'm always trying to make sure that all the coffee is fully saturated. And I'm just going to bring it up to about 325 milliliters of total water. And once that's done, then we can stop, and we don't have to worry necessarily about putting all the right amount into here and letting it flow through. Once we've reached our total volume that we're looking for, we can just pull it away regardless of how much water is left in there, because we've already extracted with that volume everything that we might need to extract or might desire to extract. Let me see. I can't see anymore. My eyes are really getting old. George Shem says that the Fausto punches me in the face. Where'd it go? I go comatose after. George says that Devin, I agree with these new sizes are terrific expressions of the Fausto blend. And they're always good, says Devin. Excellent. Oh, Devin also says that the roll is tight, but the flavor is good. So I'll cut. We okay, got that already. Got that. George Brightman wants to say that to George One, let's try an older example so the melling won't knock you out. Devin says, I haven't seen the new sizes yet, but very interesting. This brew reminds you of the sack method, but with a paper. Oh, yes, I can see that. I can totally see that. And Tony says that they do not yet have the Fausto T110. Hopefully you get that soon. And George says to keep an eye out at your local because they are truly lovely, rich and roasty. I love them so far. We'll make it happen in order to get you on board the Fausto train. Nice. Nice. All right. So we're almost, no, we're not almost there. I want to say we're almost there, but we're nowhere even close. It's a little bit slow. Maybe we need to have coarser ground coffee to get the extraction rate faster. Ideally, regardless of the style of brewing, ideally, as a general rule, you would like to have your coffee brew in about 3.5 to 4 minutes. I think we've exceeded that at this point. Feels like we have. But you know what? You just kind of roll with it and let it go. And I tend not to get too worried about it. I know some people get very, very antsy with the way they brew, and I'm just like, nowadays I'm just like, it'll happen. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Does feel like it's going slowly. I'm feeling impatient. So how's your guys' week? 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. How long have your 2 weeks have been? Everything's been good. Anything interesting happening? I'm a little bit tired, man. I've been a little bit tired. Like I feel like I haven't been able to catch up on sleep, and I'm trying to sleep a bit. Like since I got back on Friday, I've been trying to sleep, but man, it's been difficult. George says that's what happens when you spend your mornings driving around tasting random shop and gas station. I know, it's terrible. It's terrible. All right, we're almost there. I think we're like there's the 300 mark. Just waiting to hit that, and then we'll be done. Got a little cup here to put the basket on once we're reaching that point of finish, and then whatever's left here will drain into that. Yeah, I think that's good. Put that there. All right, now let's put that to the side. All right, excellent. There it is. There's our elixir, looking pretty good. Look at that. All right, Kogu, 300 milliliters. Now what I'm going to do is I want to put that in this thermal mug, which I'm going to preheat. Let me preheat that a little bit. Just to give it a little bit more oomph. This way we'll get to keep the coffee for a while longer. But let's give it a try and see how it tastes. Whoops. I'm going to give it a taste. There's that little bit sharp of fruitiness. Oh, wow. Good sweetness. Oh, interesting. A little bit of this fermentiness to it. Interesting. That's very interesting. Actually, that's quite good. All right, I'm going to put the lid on to keep the heat. Now it's time to get into our cigar of the week, which is the Stolen Thrones Preakness 150 limited edition. This is a Corona 6x46 cigar made with Nicaraguan fillers and binders, as well as Ecuadorian Habano Claro wrapper. Take this out of the thing, and this thing costs $15. I got a tobacco leaf over the weekend, $15. Now, how did I come into this cigar? Like I said, my friend Marvin was in town for Preakness. He called me up early this week. He said, "Hey, man, I'm in town." I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here, man?" He's like, "I'm here for Preakness." I was like, "Oh, okay, good." He came with the owners of Stolen Throne. And he was working, I guess he's been working on a couple new blends with Stolen Throne that are exclusive to Hawaii. And Marvin likes to do these Hawaii exclusive cigars. Like the T110 from Tatuai was one of the early ones, and that's where the T110 started, was in Hawaii. There's been a couple others with different companies, and I guess the latest one is with Stolen Throne. There's two that I don't know if they've come out or if they're coming out. He did give me two of those, so we're going to have those on the show in future episodes. So that's coming up. But they called me up and they were like, I told them, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm actually out of town. I won't be back till Friday. You know, he's like, oh, I said, how long are you here? He's like, we're here till Sunday morning. I was like, oh man. I said, well, you know, I know you're going to Preakness. If you have the time for Saturday night, let me know. I'll come out and meet you. And, you know, I said, but if you don't, I know that Preakness stuff can get quite hectic. So if you don't have the time to come and meet, I'll totally understand. We'll just get together, you know, whenever I get back to Hawaii. Because he hasn't been to Maryland out here to Baltimore since I first introduced him to Raul. It was probably about 2012. So it's been a while since he's been out here. And so, but he called me up. He's like, "Yeah, man, we're gonna go over to Tobacco Leaf." So I went over to Tobacco Leaf and hung out with them for just a little while. They had to get back, and you know it was already kind of late, so we got to hang out a little bit. I smoked one of the regular Stolen Thrones, Cook of the Crown. I really like those. And the interesting thing, the guy that owns Stolen Thrones, he is actually from Baltimore, lives in Yorktown, which is just outside of Virginia Beach, and is a cowboy. You know, beard, t-shirt, jeans, boots, hat. I was like, huh. It's kind of weird for being in Baltimore. I mean, like, we have Western wear here, but not you don't see like cowboys or walking around, you know. So, but nice guy, nice crew. All right, so let's have a look here. This is the Preakness 150. Or should I go Preakness 150? Nice little band. I can't really see the detail. I think that's Stolen Thrones logo in the zero. And then you can see here on the back, they've got the Baltimore Calvert triangles. This is a feature. These black and where it's gray is actually yellow, or it will be yellow in normal use here in Maryland. And this is reflective on both the flag of the city of Baltimore as well as on the Maryland state flag. There's a couple sections of the Maryland state flag that have this pattern on it. And if I remember correctly, it's from the Calvert family, one of the founding families of Maryland. Now, the wrapper, this Ecuadorian Claro Habano Claro, is actually really silky. It feels super silky. It feels just beautiful. And like it's got such a glide and smoothness to it that it feels when I would think of how would I feel, how would perfect hydration of tobacco feel? This is what it feels like. Feels like perfection in humidification. And there's a nice, rich tobacco, very light barnyard fragrance to the wrapper. It's a little bit more hay when you smell the foot. Interesting. All right, so that's a pretty cigar. That's a pretty cigar. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. It's a very pretty cigar. And I'm going to start to our scoring. Let me look, that's fairly light. But just wow, beautiful. That's really one of the prettiest wrappers I've felt in a very long time. So let us. George says he called himself Lord Calvert since he had a land grant from the King of England. But I guess when you get, lords are not necessarily knighted, right? Is that correct? Correct. But lords will have landlords, right? Okay, so let's do our cutting. I'm going to use our El Cheapo cutter here. Probably need to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. It's getting really bad, the glasses. Okay, there's our cut. Not bad. I've got a little bit of scratchiness in the back of my throat for some reason. Let me get some water. I need some water is what I need to get. It's probably better. Okay, now time for the cold draw. light sweetness, a little bit of like Thompson grape sweetness. Interesting. Let's see, very nice. I think that we're gonna say like I don't think that the cold draw is as good as the fragrance, but really, really nice. I wanted to say 9 if the cold draw had matched the fragrance, but I'm gonna say 8.75. So very good plus, but that's a really nice, beautiful wrapper. Like that's just beautiful, beautiful wrapper. George is asking, where has the Zycar multi-tool gone? You know, the multi-tool is downstairs. Here in the garage, I have this. I have some tools here in the garage, and so I'm just using what we have here instead of having to worry about shuttling things around. I don't need to. Also, I need to turn on the fan so we can push the smoke away. All right, now light up. See, like, well, downstairs we got all this fanciness. Here we just got simple kind of things like this lighter. All right, it's lit. We're off to the races. Initial puff. Actually, there's some nice flavors. George says, S&S swag, absolutely. Have you, oh gosh, what's wrong with me? Have you, how did the event with Pete go last week? That's what I meant to ask. So there's a little bit of spiciness to it, good complexity. It's actually starting off very, very nicely. Which is, I think, something that you want when you're talking about a cigar that's MSR, that's retailing for $15. Good complexity, good amount of spice, not a heavy spice, and definitely not the black pepperiness that we may think of when we think of Nicaraguan tobaccos, but really a nice blend here. Let's see what else they had to say here. This is actually a cigar. The MSRP of this cigar is actually $14, so it's a little bit more expensive because of Maryland's OTP, the other tobacco products tax. And there's 30,000 cigars total production. They come in boxes of 10, 3,000 boxes of 10. Oh, nice. Starting off nice. Oh, you know what? I'm just thinking this week was, this was not, what was this the, oh yeah, this is the 150th running of the Preakness Stakes. So who won? The winner was a horse called Journalism, which is different than the winner of the Kentucky Derby, who did not run. Why, George, why did the, what was it called, camaraderie or something like that? Why did the winner of the Kentucky Derby not participate in this Preakness? I hear that both Journalism and sovereignty, something like that, are going to run in the Belmont. But why did they not run both? Or why did that other one not? Why did sovereignty not run in Preakness? George says it was crazy busy. Oh, at the event, wow! I bet. I mean, everybody's always interested in seeing Pete. So, while we're not getting the black pepper spice that you might associate with a lot of Nicaraguans, we're getting a good, strong spice. Like there's some spiciness, maybe like cayenne, nutmeg, cloves. This is quite interesting. Like, I'm pretty surprised at how, well, then again, I don't know. I'm saying that I'm surprised, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Like, because I smoked the Crook of the Crown Toro on Saturday night, I've had a taste of Stolen Throws relatively recently. And what I remarked about, what I thought about that cigar that night was that it had a lot of the features of that cigar that I really enjoyed: spice, sharpness, bite, a little bit of like ferocity. It had it was pronounced, right? It wasn't shy. It wasn't like, reserved. It was kind of like, and it had some of the great features that I like of Roma craft, right? That kind of like boldness, the bold characteristics. This has similar, but it feels right now still a bit more refined, which I would imagine that you probably should, because if you're celebrating a event that's been running for 150 years, that's a big part of the town you grew up in. You should have some reverence for it. You should have some respect put on it. So while there is some of that brash spiciness to it, it is very contained. It is very reserved in that respect, especially when you compare it to the Crook of the Crowns. George says that Sovereignty came out of the Derby with a hoof issue, I believe, but I'm pretty sure that the trainer owner team always wanted to aim for the Belmont and skip the Preakness, but the horse gave them an out. Ah, I see. I see. Why would people want to, like, those of you who you probably understand more than I do. For certainly you understand more than I do about horse racing. Why? What's the advantage of skipping the Preakness? Is it just so that your horse can recover, so you have a better chance of winning the Belmont? And why would you do that instead of trying to win the Triple Crown? That's what I'm curious to understand. We're gonna move over a little bit because you know why? That fan is right on my head. That's better. As long as it's not blowing right across my head, right? Yeah, definitely good spiciness to it. Like, it's not one of it. It's got enough spice that, like that last that this last moment here, where it's like maybe 3, 4, 5 puffs right in a row. Like, it's got enough bite that you start to do that multiple puffs in a row, and it starts to kick back a little bit. It gives you a little bit of like, hey, kind of like, slow down, enjoy me, don't go too fast. That's pretty good though. That's quite a nice beginning. Like a good. It's got good bold announcement coming in. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Yeah. It's not heavy, right? Like, I think the Crook of the Crown is heavy. A lot of the Roma crafts are heavy. This is not as heavy as those. It's got less weight, which I think will make it a little bit more bearable over the longer run. George says it is extremely rare for horses to run 3 races in 5 weeks, especially since traditionally the Belmont is a bigger challenge, Longest race of any of these horses will run in their entire career. Wow, really? Okay. Okay, gotcha. So I guess that's what really makes it truly an achievement if a horse can win the Triple Crown. George says that the gray band is the mummy. The olive drab was the Frank. Oh, we're talking about there must have been something, a question somewhere along the way that I have missed. Oh, here we are. Here we are. Tony says, George, if I'm moving to a ridiculously old box press tattoo, I'm moving to a ridiculously old box press tattoo white Monster Series Corona, olive drab or gray band. Do you know what blend? Do you know what blend it is? Ah, okay. There we go. There we go. I am not that well versed in those mummy cigars to know them by the band. I was a little bit late to coming to that. I think my first mummy was in 2013. I think they started like a year or two before that. There was one that I really, really enjoyed. Maybe it's the werewolf one. I don't remember. It's been so long since I've had it. But there was one that I felt was like the best of them all. I was like, oh man, that was one. That was a cigar that I didn't get a box of. So I was like, oh. I mean, it just wasn't available when I learned about it. So I was like, ah. George says that the Belmont is called the test of champions since the 1.5 mile distance is so grueling, even great horses lose steam. Oh, wow. So are the other ones just a mile long? Is that right? And George Juan says that I believe there have only been 14 Triple Crown winners since 1873. Wow. So less than 10% of Triple Crown winners in 150 years. Well, I guess that's presuming that the three have been running for 150 years each. But let's say they are. Oh, they would have to be because they would have to at least won the Preakness, right? Devin says, I thought the Monster series was okay. Not my favorite series, but of course I love the Lanceros. Ah, I think maybe that's part of the reason why there was a lot of maybe variation between what people liked and didn't like of the monsters because they were all different sizes until they came out with those re-releases of the Lanceros. I'm getting a bit long here. I'm going to dump it because I don't want to drop it. But so far, man, really, 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 really great. Really delicious. George says the Derby is a mile and 3/16. The Preakness is shorter, and the V Belmont is a mile and a half. Oh, Preakness is shorter. I didn't know that. I gotta say, like, or I get it. They're longer races, but I'm from Baltimore, so we have Baltimore pride, and I'm always a little bit irritated that these other races get a little more attention than the Preakness. I think Baltimore is always a city that's a little bit like neglected because we're so surrounded by other metropolitan areas. But what can you do? What can you do? The cigar is very nice, very nice. So the last time I saw you guys, I was still in Connecticut at my friend's house, hiding out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know why he lives in the middle of nowhere, but he lives in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? But nice house, like this. I think it's like an 18th century house because it's all like old and kind of rickety and probably haunted. I didn't hear anything, but what I did like about his house, he's got these floors on the first floor, these like wood floors. They're so beautiful. I don't even know what kind of wood they're. To me, they look like Hawaiian koa, but I can't imagine, other than Rick Hearn, who owns Hearn Hardwoods in Pennsylvania, I can't imagine anybody else would be importing wood from Hawaii to build their floors. But it looks almost exactly like koa to me. But Craig's with us. What's going on, Craig? How are you, man? Good to see you. Welcome. George wants to know, did the deck survive the fire pit? Yes, yes, the deck survived the fire pit with no issues, perfectly unscathed, not even warm. You know, heat rises. Something like that. Something like that. But while I was in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, I was there because of this event that I wanted to attend called the Fine Woodworking New England, sponsored by Fine Woodworking Magazine. And as you guys all know, I'm really new to this whole fine woodworking thing. And this is one of those events where you go and they have a bunch of sessions. They've got some demonstrations going on. They've got kind of like a trade show-ish kind of setup where a bunch of people are showing their work and like their wares. There's a company called Sutherland Wells that does these finishes that I'd only heard about Sutherland Wells, and they were showing this, so I was able to get a little sample of some of their finishes, right? Like this is their botanical finishes, right? So this botanical finish is a polymerized tongue oil. And I've been using tongue oil on those chairs that I've been making, but this has like citrus botanicals in it and to polymerize it as well as to make it as well as I guess it helps with adhesion or something and penetration or whatever it does. But you can get a nice tongue oil looking finish. But instead of waiting a week or so for it to cure, you only have to wait 24 hours. And you just kind of wipe it on. And this other one called Teddy's, this is also another polymerized tongue oil, but this is a paste form. So it's basically the paste form of this botanical. I haven't used this one. This was they gave me as a sample. This I bought for $16, so it's kind of pricey, but it's really nice. Like I've used it a couple coats on this chair that I've been working on, and I think it's a nice finish. It's a nice finish on walnut. I put 2 coats on this chair here. The chair is right here. This chair right there. And I'll show you that in a little bit because I got the phone right now tethered to the plug to keep it charged. What am I missing here? Devin says, Tony, I don't think I've tried that yet. I'll have to try along with the Grand Kohonu. Yeah, the Grand Kohonu is well, I think personally, if I was to tell you what to try, I would suggest trying the Kohonu 2003. The Kohonu the Kohonu 2003 is a fairly large ring gauge cigar. And that was actually the very first Tatuai that I ever smoked. Like it was Christmas of 2004 or something like that. I was in Honolulu, we're hanging out, I was staying at my friend Frank's house. Marvin comes over and he brings these cigars and he's like, hey man, I got this new brand of cigars from this dude in California called Tatuai. I really like it. I want you guys to try it out. And he had the Kohonu, and man, awesome. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I need to buy some more of these. So my suggestion, if you want to try, if you're going to try the Kohonu, try the 2003 first, and then go to the Grand. The Grand is much. From a friend, I remember Grand is thicker and longer. I think I've had that once. I don't really smoke the Kohonus other than the 2003, and that's not necessarily because I don't like the other ones. It's just more because I have that nostalgia for my very first Tatuai. That's really the only reason why I don't really change. George says, very good. Glad on home insurance claim wasn't. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. No, I tell you, had I burned the deck, which I hadn't thought about until you guys were like, causing a ruckus about it, I would have been super embarrassed. Like, here's my friend. He's like, yeah, man, just stay at my house. He totally even wasn't there. Like, he totally was like in DC that week, and he was like, yeah, don't worry, just stay there. I'll leave you the key. It's like, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I had like the whole house to myself. Should have brought a girl. Would have been kind of nice if I brought a woman. because then you'd had full advantage. Tony says, Devin, they come out sporadically in a sampler, just like the Skinny Monster. 638 by 43 is the size. Oh, I think I missed that. I think I missed that. But it's interesting, this show that I went to, the Fine Woodworking in New England, because they had all these people doing presentations about how to build certain aspects and share what they do in the world. And there was this one guy who I remember watching, and I went to go watch his session. He had a session on bandsaw boxes, where you use a bandsaw to make boxes, hence the name. And I've always kind of had this idea that bandsaw boxes are kind of dumb. Like I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I would ever want to do something like that. That's kind of dumb, right? And so I went there. This guy Michael Cullen, he gets up in front of. He's from California, so he's got that California kind of laid back style, right? It's kind of funny. He's really engaging. He's really entertaining to listen to, and very insightful. His first thing he says out of the box, he's like, when I first started doing bandsaw boxes, I thought they were dumb, and I was like, I'm in the right place because this guy knows what I'm thinking, right? But he goes on to show the work that he does. And if you look him up, his name's Michael Cullen, Cullen. If you put in like Instagram, Michael Cullen boxes or something like that, or YouTube or Google, you'll find him. He's actually very well known for making these bandsaw boxes. And the way that he does it is so interesting. He takes the wood, he cuts it out. He doesn't use any kind of rulers. He just does it all freehand. And he makes some really interesting looking boxes. And I was like, huh. Actually, it was so interesting that by the end of it, I was like, I need to try that. So after he makes the boxes, he actually uses like gouges and carving tools to carve reliefs into the boxes. So I've been trying to figure out like what kind of gouges and carving tools do I need to buy. I've been at the wood store the last couple of times, just looking around, trying to understand like what I'm totally out of my depth in. And then another guy that I was talking to, actually him and I were talking mostly about finishes, right? Because I saw some of his finishes. I was like, man, how did you achieve that? That's pretty incredible. Because he had a sample table, but what he does, he actually does laminations. He makes his own laminations of wood, and then he uses a scroll saw to cut patterns in these laminations, and then he layers them. Really interesting stuff. A guy named Tim Coleman, Coleman. And, him and I were just talking, for the whole weekend, and I was just, picking his brain just because I was just curious about his work. I thought his work was kind of interesting. And, he was really funny. And I mean, not funny, haha, but funny, curious, because one time we're talking, I said, so how do you figure these things out? He's like, well, unlike other people that get it, like, get their inspiration and they see it and they finish it. He's like, I struggle with it all the time. Like I'm really slow to come up with a design. I'm like really just struggling to have some inkling of like, semblance of brilliance. I'm like, oh wow. Talk about self-deprecating. And I was like, I thought it was kind of funny, but I thought it was kind of interesting because he was really humble about it and really, really self-deprecating about his what he was doing. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I Googled him after the show was over, and I found all these videos and articles about him. I was like, oh man, this guy is like super well known for doing this type of like scroll saw work. Like he's one of the pioneers. And I was like, oh man. So you get to meet all these people and see these people that, of course, had I been probably in the woodworking world and paid attention to all the masters, I probably would know more than half of the people that are there presenting and been like, oh wow, I'm really like in awe of your work. But since I don't know anything, I have no like preconceptions about anyone or any of the products that I'm seeing. So I'm just kind of like, hey, who are you? Are you famous? Actually, I never asked that because I don't. But I was like, oh, it could be like, I could be at an event and I'm hanging out with this guy named George. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, we got a little bit of blackout. I guess we're all right now. I guess we're all right. Looks like we're all right. Devin says, "Thanks for the rec. I'll add that. Yeah, check that out. I mean, I think it's a nice place to start. And really, I'm only saying that because that's where I started. So I don't want you to get ahead of me. That's or something like that." Devin's asking, "So when are you going to make a grand humidor? Maybe dovetail fittings?" I was thinking about not necessarily a humidor, but maybe some. So this guy Tim Coleman, right? What he does is that he takes. Let me see if I can just give a semblance of the idea of what he's doing, right? So these are cutoffs that I have from koa wood of this project that I'm working on, but this will suffice, right? Imagine these are 2 millimeter, maybe these are 2 millimeter, I don't know what they are, but imagine these are just like, 2 millimeter sheets of wood that you've cut out, and these are like what you would do plies, like plies and plywood, like you would do lamination this way. So you'll cut out these, and then let's say, see how the grain is running up and down vertically here. Now, if I take this and I cross it like that, now they're going across. What he does is that he takes them, he puts them kind of together, just kind of holds them or tapes them together. Takes a scroll saw, punches the blade through the laminate so that it comes, because you're doing these cutouts, and he cuts out these patterns, and then he does it at an angle so that when you actually take it all apart and you put the two pieces together, the laminations are captured in the angles. It's really kind of fascinating. And when you do it with cross graining your wood, it's a very subtle effect, but you can see it, and you're like, whoa! Like you don't really realize it at first, but then you're like, oh, that is kind of awesome. And it's very creative. It's very interesting what he does. Again, his name is Tim Coleman, and you can find it. He's got an Instagram channel, or page. You can look him up on Instagram, and he does these little like cabinets. And originally I was thinking about there's a video on YouTube about interview with him with Fine Woodworking. A guy Ben Strano, who's one of the editors of Fine Woodworking, who's talking to him about this cabinet that he did that was kind of inspired by Arabic calligraphy. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, Arabic calligraphy. And it's not, he's not using actual Arabic calligraphy, but the shapes of there's a technical term for it that I'm totally forgetting, of this marquetry that he's doing is inspired by Arabic calligraphy. But I was thinking, I should call some of my friends and actually get in touch with the Arabic calligrapher. And I was thinking about, what if I made a cabinet that would have actual meaning Arabic calligraphy, kind of like inlaid in this way, that could be like a cabinet to store your coffee and to make coffee with, which could be translated into other things like a humidor cabinet, a cigar cabinet that would have compartments for humidors, for humidification, and then to store your accoutrement, ashtrays, things like that. Maybe something like that. I'm thinking that's just kind of like rough thoughts on all of this. George One says Padron lasted an hour and a half. It was awesome. Now on to the Kohonu 2013. Oh, nice. See, everyone's on the Kohonu trip. Oh, that was the one we just saw. We don't want to see that anymore. George Brightman says, totally off topic, but try to remind Brian about when we need to get him our contributions. Brian, I'm surprised he's not here, but I think he mentioned to me the other day that I think June they're going to try to do this fireman's thing. I'll try to find out for Monday. But if the sooner the better, if it's possible. We'll totally figure it out. But what George is talking about, if you guys have any contributions for firefighters, Brian does a lot of charitable works with different organizations. So one of the great things that he's doing is with school children at their elementary schools. He started a program a few years ago called My Cozy Corner, where he raises money to create these little spaces in a public school that is interested in it, where they bring in the tables and chairs and bean bags and flooring to cover the floor so that it's comfortable, and bookshelves, and they bring in books and games so that kids can come and kind of have a place for them to just kind of interact and hang out on their own. I think part of that was started because, during the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of that separation. So, it was designed so that it helps people to socialize. So Brian does a lot of great like charitable works like that. And one of the things he's got going on now is putting together some cigar packages for volunteer firefighters for the Lutherville Volunteer Fire Department. I believe that's the one. I hope I got that right. So if you guys have any kind of extra, it doesn't have to be New Year's, any stuff that, cigar, cigar stuff that you may have that you may not be using anymore. Andrew Borja was kind enough to give me some the other week when I saw him. Beautiful stuff. I mean, he donated like Davidoff, cigar accessories, like some beautiful like stuff, big wood, brass cutters, and so if you got everything extra lying around, and a lot of times cigar people tend to have more accoutrements and stuff than they can possibly use. And if you're not using it and you want to get rid of it, let me know. You can send it to me or give it to Brian or whatever. And one of the nice things that you can be confident that it will be given to people that will really use it, people that are really not, I don't know if I would say that they're necessarily of need, but it won't be squandered, right? It won't be squandered. And that's something that I think is important. It's something that I was thinking about recently because when I was down in San Antonio at visiting my friend at Mam's, who owns Mam's Cigar Shop, one of the things he was talking about is that he collects cigars for military guys, similar in the way that cigars for warriors is done. But he was telling me that he doesn't really do the cigars for warrior thing because he's not sure of the veracity of whether or not they get to fighters or military personnel around the world. So what he does is that he collects cigars from his customers if they so desire. He's got a box in his humidor. If you want to buy some cigars and you put them in the box, he will make sure that they are distributed to members of the branch in the 4 branches of military service. Because he was an Army artillery guy. A lot of his customers are military because they're right by one of the big military bases there. And so he's very much involved in making sure that service members receive cigars. And so that's one thing that I think that's nice, with Brian is that, you know that you're going to get, your donations will not be squandered. Oh, there's Brian right there. Okay. Brian says that, does anybody remember the date for the cigar smoking June 22nd? What does that mean? Remember the date for the cigar smoke? Isn't that the 22nd? Sunday, June 22nd. Oh, there we go. Sunday, June 22nd, cigar event at the Lutherville Fire. So there it is. There it is. The fire. June 22nd. We have until then. George says, thanks for the update. I'll try to get them the next week. Okay, I can totally bring that up here. No problem. And you're already a rock star, man. Thank you very much. So we're past the first third. I think I'm going to have to score this. I think it's been a really great cigar. Like, body has been, it's not a heavy body. I'd say it's more medium body, but qualitatively, man, it has really, really been excellent. Excellent's the only way I can describe the flavor. And that, wow, that's very nice. Brian says, sorry, the phone was listening to me when I said all those things. The date is definitely June 22nd, 8:30 a.m. to 11. Oh, in the morning. And that's something else I remember. Heath mentioned that if you're interested there, the event is going to be a cigar outing, right? So if you want to come down on that day, the 22nd of June, and have cigars with the firefighters, I think everyone is welcome. I hope so. I'm going to say that Brian will let me know if I have spoken out of turn, but I think if you're interested in coming down, for a nice cigar. Bring some cigars. We'll trade them out or whatever. So that should be kind of fun. I don't know what date. Is that a Saturday? What day is that, Brian? Hmm. Good. Good. Gosh, that's good. That is good. Brian says that, oops, the firefighters call it church. Oh, that's right. I remember he mentioned something to me that they, I guess some of the guys get together on, the firefighters will get together on Sunday mornings to have cigars um, for their church, while some of their other the churchgoers, firefighters who are churchgoers, will go to church and then they'll all get together after their church or whatever, something like that. But right now, the cigar, smoking very well. Construction, quality of construction, draw, burn, consistency, man, it's beautiful. It's just been beautiful. Like, I'm surprised. I don't know, I'm surprised. But you get surprised by a really nice cigar every once in a while. George says, I love that. Maybe next year we can get my pal Father H to attend. He was the official mascot of the Big Smoke. Oh, nice. That'd be awesome. Brian says, everyone is welcome, but again, this is a morning event, and I just don't understand how anyone could possibly be interested. I don't know either. But I suspect that an 8:30 a.m. cigar would not be a new thing, a novel thing for a lot of the guys in the crowd here. Right, we're rolling. Actually, the weather's not too bad. I think it's, dare I say, it's gotten a little bit warmer. Maybe it's not so terrible. Like the rain has stopped. We had rain for the last couple of days, but the rain has stopped, so it doesn't feel as heavy or wet as it was earlier, which is nice. Which is a nice thing. Whew, man. All right, we're here. We're rolling. One of the guys, I was at Woodcraft today. One of the guys that's there who makes furniture, he was like, because I always like to wander around and look at the different tools that are available. And he's like, "Do you really need any more tools?" And I was like, "So what do you really need?" I said, "You know what? I don't really need it. I think I've got everything. If I was really serious, if I was really thinking about it, I don't think there's really anything that I need now. I mean, I would like to get a scroll saw to try this work that I'm talking about, but and I thought I had one yesterday. DeWalt makes one, and I found this guy on Facebook Marketplace that was selling a DeWalt scroll saw, and it was kind of rusted. It was kind of beat up. But I was thinking, if I get it for the right price, I'm going to go buy it. So the guy agreed to $50. This is like a $700 scroll saw, brand new. And I was thinking, you know what? If I get that for $50, I could probably take it to DeWalt factory service up in York and exchange it for a new one at a discount. But I went out to meet the guy, and he totally flaked out and didn't even show up, didn't even contact. I was like, what the heck, dude? So what can you do? How can you do? No scroll saw. George says, taste the coffee again, please. How is it doing along? I think it's doing very well. Like, I like this fruity brightness. It's a light fruity, kind of like an apricot fruitiness. That I think goes nicely with this cigar. Like, there's no clashy. Yeah, like that's really a nice pairing right here. Nice pairing. Yeah, today we've got some nice cigars. We've got a nice cigar, nice coffee. Really, everything is going very nicely. And the cigar's smoking very well. Like we're actually getting kind of down to the kind of getting long in the tooth here. We got 45 minutes to go. I'm like, oh, part of me is wondering, can we make this last? Like I think that remember at the beginning of the cigar with spiciness, that cloves, nutmeg, you know, cayenne pepper, relatively pronounced. I think now the flavors are still there, but I think it's more my palate has become accustomed to it. So it's still very good. It's still very enjoyable. It's not boring, but I feel like, and I can't say that the flavor is mellowed. I think there's just my palate has adapted to it more. I think that's really the way to describe it. Whew. I'm gonna tap that out a little bit again. We're getting a little bit of a cracking right here below the band. You can just barely see there's a crack there. The wrapper's just starting to wanting to, it looks like it wants to come up a little bit, but the band is holding it down. I want to say we've got to be finished with the second third by this point, right? Because we're almost to the band. And I think we're still at excellent nines, both ways. So nice, so nice. So what do you guys got going on this weekend? Anything interesting? My friend Sarah called me. She's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm like, oh, where have you been? She's like, I had a boyfriend for about a year. I was like, oh, okay, well, great. She's like, but we're on break now. I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, he lives he lives in Carroll County, and it's like too much driving. I was like, oh. She's like, well, I'm free to hang out if you want. I was like, all right, let's go. So probably go out Saturday. Then one of my niece called me. She's like, are you free on Sunday? I was like, sure. What do you need? I think she wants to go shopping. It's like, all right, let's go. She's like, we'll call my other cousins and we can all go out. I was, all right. I don't know what they want to do. Go out to eat somewhere. Hopefully not too expensive. George says you are being very generous. You know, I guess I'm being very generous, but it is very good. Like it's, well, I think, well, maybe it is very good. If I said that, maybe I'm being a little bit generous. We'll really evaluate as we move along. This is where I catch my judges, right? When I'm running competitions and I'm, talking to the judges, evaluating their scores, and I say to them, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll say, I'm correlating what they say verbally how they describe their score to what they've actually given, which is why I tend to be rather sticklers as far as the using words to describe what you're experiencing, because the word and using the words that we tie to scores, like for example in our scoring system here, when we talk about average would be 6, good 7, very good 8, excellent 9, extraordinary 10. And like George is saying, George has put a good challenge there. You're being very generous. I say, yeah, well, it's. I guess I am. It's been very good, and I described it as very good, which is not 9, which is 8. So maybe it should be 8. Actually, maybe we'll make it that way. We'll say it's 8.5, because I don't think it's just very good. It's more than very good. So 8.5. So 17. So that'll be just a little bit less. I think that's fair. I wonder, this cigar was reviewed, or they talked about, was it reviewed? No, they just talked about the release in Half Wheel, so they didn't really review it. They just said it was shipping. Yeah, it just started shipping April 30th by the Rojas, and made by the Rojas Cigar Factory in Nicaragua. I don't know where Rojas. Where is Rojas? Do you know where that is in Nicaragua? I'm presuming Esteli. Let's see if there's anybody says anything else. There's no real reviews about it. I mean, it's a brand new cigar, so I guess not many people would have reviewed it by this point. I'm looking here on Google. Yeah, there's really nothing out there that talks about the review. Let's see. There is something that says review. Oh, here we go. I guess Toro Cigar Company says expect notes of sweet hay, white pepper, toasted almonds in the first stir. Did not get any of those. Transition to creamy coffee, nutmeg. Oh, nutmeg. There's nutmeg. Subtle citrus zest at the halfway mark. And then a smooth, leathery finish touched with earthy cocoa and spice. There could be some leatheriness to it. But I got a little bit different. I got a little bit of a different feeling. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any real reviews of it. We may be the first. Oh, evidently the gentleman that owns Stolen Throne, his name is Lee Marsh. Lee Marsh. But I must say, I have enjoyed Stolen Throne cigars over the years since they first came out with the Crook of the Crown Robusto. I was almost tempted when I met Leo. I was almost tempted to he never asked me anything about his cigars if I tried them or anything like that. And I'm glad he did it because he said, "Well, have you tried our cigars?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I tried it." He said, "What do you think?" If he asked me what I thought, then I would have to tell him that I really enjoyed them. But then the second time after the first release, the second release came out of the Crook of the Crown, and I bought a bundle because I was so excited to get them. And it took me almost a year to enjoy them. Like I remember buying them in February of one year. I got it from Raul. Raul was one of the early adopters. And based on the first release, when I had bought a few of them, really enjoyed them, I bought a whole bundle for the second release. And they were not ready. They were not ready. There was 20 in a bundle. And from February to November, I smoked through 18 of that bundle. And it wasn't until November of that year, I forgot what year it was. I'd have to look. By the time that I got to cigar number 19, so it was kind of like fallow 1 through 18. Cigar 19 and 20, man, by that point it had aged enough, had aged out, cleared up, whatever happens to the cigar, and just blossomed into what I had been hoping for the entire bundle. And I was like, man, it took me 18 cigars to get to this point. That kind of sucked. I was like, man. So I'm glad I didn't have to tell him that. You know, it's kind of a difficult conversation. You meet someone for the very first time and say, you know, I really enjoy your cigars, but then the one bundle I bought, it kind of sucked. Until the last two. And that kind of leaves awkwardness. It's like, but you know me, I would have told him. I would have been like, well, you know, this is what happened. George says, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm open for challenges. And if I'm unable to defend my own score, I should be willing to adapt to one that is more reflective of my experience. And that's really I think part of the approach to doing reviews is that, you know, you can be challenged. You can be, what you say on the first outing is not sacrosanct. And so there's always room for improvement, I think. But it's been very, very good. Like really, really great. Like when we get to the point of burn and draw and consistency, like nothing short of excellent. But yeah, definitely the flavors may not necessarily be all the way at excellent. Like I do want to puff on it pretty hard. You know, like you know me, I tend to like those Roma craft. But here's something that's interesting. Like I've been smoking a lot more of those, the new Maestranza Castellito Murcias. They're very good, box pressed, and in a size that I like, Robusto. But I gotta say, man, when I've been smoking them, the last few that I've smoked, like I get down to the last third, and I'm kind of like, not that I'm not enjoying it anymore, or not that not that it's any different. It's still very good. It's still very consistent. But I'm starting to feel like it's heavier, and I'm starting to feel like, man, can I finish it? Should I be finishing this? The nice thing is that when I went to go visit Mike in Austin, he gave me a bunch of cigars to try. Of course, more Roma crafts. And so I've been able to smoke other Romas in between the Murcia. So I think it's given a little bit more of complexity and experiences. George says it's smoothing for sure, but let's be clear about the flavors. I mean, the flavors are very good. The flavors are very good. The finish is very good. Everything is very good. And I think after what are we now? 239 episodes, which is ostensibly 560 hours of me babbling on about cigars and nonsense. You guys probably have some feeling for, how I really am reacting to a cigar. Like the ones that get the super high scores, like I must have a certain way of describing them, a way of feeling about them that gives you an impression that probably is definitely not. This is not equivalent to those. There's a little bit of bitterness starting to come out now that we're getting into the last third. I think that's maybe just more proximity of the heat to the end of the cigar. And I'm also puffing a little bit harder, so maybe I need to slow down a little bit and back up. Rusty's with us. What's going on, man, Rusty? How are you? Hey, Rusty, I know that Rusty messaged me a couple of days ago, last week, actually not a couple of days, last week. He was like, hey, are we still on for the 19th? I have not forgotten about you, Rusty. I've not forgotten. I'm sorry that I have not responded. I know I said that I was going to once I get home, I'm going to figure it out. But I have really been, I have really been preoccupied with things here at at the home front. So I had not even thought about our scheduling in this show until today. But right now we're at episode number 239. Next week is 240. So we were talking about doing something for the 250th. So that puts us 10 weeks away. I don't know what that is. Let's see my calendar here. Let's see if we can lock that down. I've been telling you that yes, I think we'll have the new shop ready, but I don't think it's going to be ready. And also, I think that unlike the last roastery that we had, where we had a separate building and control of the total parking lot, I do have to be a little bit concerned because my next door neighbor, they do threading, and there is a residential neighbor upstairs with a family. So I don't know if we really can do it in the same manner. We might have to might have to find an alternative location for that. But let's see. 29. So there's 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Okay, ostensibly the 50th, the 250th show will be now on August 7th. So we can, I know you were thinking about the 19th, maybe the 9th or the 2nd. George says, "Yo, Rusty, keeping my travel stash in my Obrador religiously." Awesome, awesome, awesome. In case you guys might not know, I think when George and Rusty got together, when George was up there a few weeks ago, Rusty also gave him one of the same Rubbermaid doors that we have for the show. That was very kind. Oops. Brian says, George, if you were able to invite Father H to next year's event, that would be great because it just seems a little awkward that we're just kind of sharing their space versus bringing. I like that. I like that idea. Although when you say that you're going to bring a father, I always think of like my envisioning is like, Father Guido Sarducci. George says we have to do a 250 show no matter what, where, or how. Absolutely. We will definitely do something. We just got to figure out, I just got to figure out logistics on it. And 10 weeks from now, just as George 1 is 731. Oh, is that the 30? Okay. Well, that's 10 weeks from now. I mean, it can, it can be any time around then. Oops. We can smoke in the parking. That was the original idea, was to smoke in the parking lot. But that's my concern, is that because there is a family upstairs. I mean, I believe this is the same family that was in the space when we were across the street, so they're very familiar that we did a lot of cigaring. But I don't want to. I'm concerned about them being upset if we did it, at their house, we're below their house or whatever you want to say. So we'll see. We'll work on that. I'll work on that. Oh goodness, what is going on here? The firefighters call it church. Oh no, that's not the right one. Rusty said, "I just need to put in." I know. I remember. I'm so, my apologies again for not being more on the ball on this past week. George says, Father H is a larger than life character, but legit minister. Okay. Oh, all right. Excellent. What took place at your old roaster? Remember when you came down? We had the big one for 150, or was that 200? That's the one. or the 100th. But at the roastery, we would gather somewhat regularly there to either smoke outside on the parking lot there, outside the garage doors, or inside. So people would see. I know people would see us, mingling in and out. Did you check into the pavilion? Oh, I totally forgot. I will try to remember that tomorrow. Especially now that we have a closer time. Or George says we could do the 250 episodes from Capitol, not on the patio reserved for us. Out on the patio. Okay, we can. Maybe we'll have to do that. I mean, I think that's a nice way to go as well. His website is called Holy. Oh, that's why he's called Father H. Gotcha, Father Holy. All right, I'm going to work on that this weekend, and we'll figure it out. Did I catch up on everything? One of the things that's a little bit irritating with the way they redid the interface for StreamYard with the phone, everything is so much more compacted. There's not much space to move your fingers. But I think for the next few weeks, we've got a lot of interesting cigars to go through. Mike Rosales, when I was there, gave me a couple prototype cigars for us to try, as well as I got the 2 cigars that Marvin gave me for their Hawaii only releases, and I got a few other things that are kind of interesting. Actually, on the way back from Connecticut, I took the long way through Easton, Pennsylvania, and man, it's a long drive back. God, it just feels so long. And I was able to swing by Cigars International in Bethlehem right before they closed and picked up some cigars there that I think might be kind of interesting. I'll give you a little hint. I found a cigar, an old school brand that was around in the 90s. And I thought that, you know what? I haven't smoked one of these cigars in decades. Let me get one of these old green cigars and we'll give it a try and just see what it's like in modern times. Dev's with us, man. Good evening. How's the cigar? What's going on, Dev? How are you doing, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the show. The cigar's good. I'm using the Preakness 150 from Stolen Thrones. It's to celebrate the Preakness Stakes that happens here in Baltimore last weekend, the second stamp of the Triple Crown. And if you guys might not be familiar with Dev's a coffee roaster in Honolulu. He roasts coffee for a company called Ali'i Coffee, right there on North Baratania Street. And I've been to his shop. I met him in person the last time I was in town. We were kind of just chatting there while he was roasting on their roasters. Kind of a good time. And he normally joins us on the morning show. So good to see you. George says, boo. See, here's the crazy thing, right? Like when you're taking, what did I do? I came down on the way back from Hartford, came down 84, crossed over the old Tappan Zee Bridge, which now they call the Mario Cuomo Bridge. I don't know why. Was Mario Cuomo such a great governor for the state of New York that they would rename the Tappan Zee Bridge in his name? Seems kind of odd to me, but I'm not a New Yorker. I wouldn't know. But I came across there, came across 84, and then cut down 78, goes through Easton. And that route that I took, as I was driving down, I'm looking for cigar shops. Man, there's no cigar shops. There's a lot of tobacco. There's a lot of smoking shops, like a lot of head shops, those modern type of for the young kids, but not really any cigar shops. And the couple that I did see that were kind of on the route were significantly off of the interstate. So I thought my best bet would be to go to, because I wanted a cigar for the road. I was like, I would like to have a cigar because from Easton, it's still another 3 hours home. And I was like, man. So I was looking at the time and I got there. They closed at 9 o'clock. I got there at 8:45. Or was it they closed at 8? I got there at 7. Whatever it is, I got there like 15 minutes to go. Just bought a couple cigars, bought like a Roma Craft and one more other one. Smoked that on the way back. Sometimes when I'm traveling, you know, it's like, it's nice to have a cigar just to help pass the time, you know. Just it's long, it's tedious. Tony says there are pavilions in Cordona State Park up in Pennsylvania, and the one right on the way to York, which would be smoke friendly. Oh, all right. I'll look into that too. I'll look into that also. Rusty says they will always be the tap. And me too. Me too. I don't know why would they want to call it something else. That would be like renaming the Verrazano Narrows into some, I don't know, some other kind of crazy name guy. George says that Mario was the best gov in New York and the least. Oh, was he really? Okay. I'll believe that. I mean, I would hope so if they're going to rename a bridge for him. Dev says, just finished a quick smoke, had an Oliva Series V Melania. Oh, nice. Did you get the Lancero size or one of the other ones? Brian's a big fan of the of a very particular strain of the Lancero size in the Series 5 Melanios. He's very particular about it. Like Brian's kind of like the savant of certain cigars. Like I remember he'd be lecturing us about the Ashton, was it Ashton Vintage or what was the Ashton that you really like? Ashton VSG. That's what it's the VSG. He's like, and I remember he would be telling one time he was telling years ago he was like telling me about the Ashton VSG. I said, well, what? Because he's really passionate about it. And I'm like, what VSG? Because he's like, not all VSGs are the same. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you know, there's a certain type of VSG. And I was like, well, how do you determine that? He's like, when I smoke, I pick them up. I think it was when he does a cold draw. It does a cold draw on it. Like he'll buy one cigar. And if the cold draw has the taste of pineapple, he's like, this is the one. And then he'll buy a bunch of them. And I remember, like, I was like, but this guy's crazy. I don't know what he's talking about. He's nuts, this guy. And I remember one time I was like, I went to a cigar shop. I got it. They had VSGs. I took a VSG. I bought it. I cut it. Oh, it does have this pineapple-y kind of character to the cold draw. And I smoked it. Man, fabulous. And I was like, oh, this is very nice. So there is a method to the madness. A VSG, yes, VSG, very good, very good. George says, love your typo, Dev. We should rename the Olivia flagship as Melania. I guess if you do something like take the Melania and do to it what Bill Clinton did to his. Rusty says, Tony, those are there public grills at this park? So coming down towards the end, a little bit of a darker character coming out. Some slight bitterness is starting to emerge, I think, because we're just getting so close to the end now. But overall, it's been very, very enjoyable. A very, very good cigar. With this coffee, Dev, I didn't mention this, but I'm having a coffee that some of my friends from Saudi Arabia gave to me that own a company there called Roasting House. This is their what's it called? This is called the Bounty Oasis. It is a natural anaerobic process, Colombian heirloom varietal coffees. Not terribly lightly roasted, kind of more of a medium roast, but really beautiful coffee. Like I drank some of this on the morning live stream a week or two ago, and I thought it was good, but I think it's definitely improved in the time since we last drank it. Like it's really good today, really nice. I hope tomorrow we're going to have better weather because we've had a lot of rain these last couple of days and it's been cold, which has kind of thrown off my whole like schedule this week. Like we had a big on the way back from Boston on Friday. We had a big storm. Like I think there was even like almost like tornadoes happening. And they said it was like half an hour of crazy weather. And when I got back to the house power was cut, and one of the trees had fallen. So I was like, oh man! So I'm like, let me go cut down. Let me go chop up this tree. So I've been slowly chopping up this tree. Turns out it's a walnut, and I was like, oh, a walnut tree, nice. So I've been like hacking off the limbs and trying to get to the trunk so I can. I'm hoping that the trunk is fairly thick. So I called up my sawyer and I was like, hey man, what is the minimum dimension that we really need for diameters to make it worthwhile to saw, to put it on the mill and cut it up? And he was like, yeah, 12 inches would be good enough. And I was like, okay, I think it's 14. So maybe get some planks out of it. My neighbor dropped a silver maple a few weeks ago, and the arborist, I went to the arborist and said, hey, could I have a couple of those cuts? And they're like, sure. They brought them over, loaded in the truck. I drove them on my Sawyer, and we put them on the mill and slabbed them out. Now they're just kind of curing. They're going to take like 2 years to like dry out. So I'm reaching this crazy point of trying to mill my own lumber, which is probably foolish. Brian says, yes, there are grills at the parks, okay, at Corduroy. Dev says, I'm curious, do you have a top 3 cigars of all time? Like, if you could only smoke 3 cigars for the rest of your life, what would it be? Gosh, actually, that's fairly simple for me. Well, if I go historically, I think that there was a time in the early 2000s that I only smoked one cigar. For like 5 years, I smoked one cigar. Well, mainly, that's not true. I smoked a lot of these cigars, and I still think it's one of the more like underrated, underappreciated cigars. And George, I think, will be upset with this analysis, but it is my thoughts on this. I really like this cigar, the Bellicoso Maduro from Paul Garmirian. I think his Bellicoso Maduro is just stellar, and it's funny because you talk to George, and I don't know how often he actually has the Davidoff factory make his cigars, but like I guess he does big runs and then they just store them in his warehouse, and then it'll come out a few years later like this box came from 1995, and I was like, yeah, but you haven't made any cigars since 1995. But they're excellent. They're excellent cigars, but they're not like well, you guys all know that I really enjoy the Roma Craft Intemperance Revenge, which is very like forceful. It's a very robust cigar. This is not like that. This is super mellow, super like smooth and complex, and just really a beautiful smoke. And then after that, I was really smoking a lot of these PDR Pinar del Rio cigars, which is owned by. Gosh, he called me the other day, and now I can't remember the name. But anyway, he calls me, and he had this cigar. Their Series Privada 1975 SP54, 54 ring gauge, slightly box pressed, and Maduro, and that was an excellent. I love that cigar. Like I smoked tons of those cigars. Unfortunately, they had a rebranding and they redid a lot of their blends. So the new one that it took over the series, the Privada, whatever, SP54, whatever that similar size, it's a bit different. It's not the same cigar now. Tatuaje Cojo Nu is a very good cigar. So I would say maybe if I was to take 3, it would be the Roma Craft Revenge, the Paul Garmirian Bellicoso Maduro, and probably the Tatuaje Cojo Nu. Although I could very well be swayed by the Black Label. Is that the Black Label is what? The Reserve? Bellicoso Anniversary, whatever they call it, the one in the Black Label. Tatuai, that's also a stellar smoke. I would say those three: Kohonu, Tatuaje, Roma Craft, Intemperate Revenge, and the Pulgrimiri and Bellicoso Maduro. If I was to say three. Some other arguments that could be made. I mean, I really have enjoyed it in the few times that I've had it, the Cuban, but you never know with Cubans. They're kind of very inconsistent. But so far, every one of the Cuban Trinidad Media Lunas have been superb. 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 I can't say that for any other Cuban I've tried. Like there's been times we've had like sublime multi-person number twos, and then followed up by just dog rocket number twos. But another cigar that I think was really nice and no longer exists, but since Marvin was in town, I thought, hey, let me share with him a cigar that I have. The very last cigar that I have. Back in the day, in the mid '90s, Partagas used to make a series, a cigar called the Number 10. Number 10 cigar was I don't know what size it was, 48 by like 7 or 8 inches. It was a big cigar, but really one that we really enjoyed. $4.60 back in 1995, so very expensive in 1995. And Alfred Dunhill, we had an Alfred Dunhill store on Kalakaua Avenue, and it was actually at the Moana Surf. It was at the mall part of the Moana Surf Rider, or actually in the one side of the Moana Surf Rider, there was a Alfred Dunhill store, and one of our good friends, Frank Orr, used to work there. And I bought this box from Frank in 1995 or 1994, and I had one left. And this was the era that we all became friends back then. So I was like, "Hey, man, I brought this for you." Kind of nostalgia. That was a very good cigar. Oh, George is going to bed. Okay, George, thanks for tuning in, man. I've got to bounce. My regards. Good to see you, man. Look forward to seeing you guys all. Absolutely. Oh, thanks. And give it a try. I mean, if you can find them, give them a try. I think they're really nice. But like you're in Honolulu, so like I said, I was just with Marvin Chang, and Marvin Chang is the guy that runs our field wine company for Foodland, and Marvin has impeccable taste. And the nice thing about having Marvin in Hawaii is that, and running the program at our field, is that he really sets the tone for cigars in Hawaii. And in some respects, he kind of sets a tone for cigars in America, because I don't know what it is, but I guess cigar makers, they like coming to Hawaii and they like Marvin, and he's got great taste. And so you can go to our field there, and there will be very good cigars for you to have. Like he does that Paniolo cigar with I can see the box. It's got like a horseshoe on it, but I can't remember. Is it Tony will remember who makes that? I can't remember who makes it, but Marvin knows everyone. Like, how well connected he is. Like he knows Jorge Padron very well. One year, 2014, I joined them for Marvin put together a trip with all the guys from Hawaii to go to the cigar safari at Drew Estate. And so I joined them, and we had this great weekend. Had this great weekend there. And then a lot of the guys went home after the weekend. And then myself and Dan, who owns Honolulu Cigar Company, with the three of us who hung out in Esteli longer. We hung out a little bit with Skip, and then one of our trips was to go visit Padron, because Jorge told him, "Hey, let's go visit the factory." And how connected he is that nobody visits the factory. Like the factory of Padron is not open to visitors. So we go to the factory, we go to the front, the security guard, and we're like, "Hi, we're here for a tour." And this guy is having none of it. He's like, "Who are you? Who are you clowns? I'm not letting you." He has this attitude, "I'm not letting you in. We have no idea." And I'm trying to speak to him in Spanish, right? Because the guys don't speak Spanish, and I can speak a little bit. trying to communicate with him too that we are really here legitimately for a tour. They are expecting us, and he's like having none of it. So I got on my phone. We call up Jorge in Miami, and Marvin gets on the phone with Jorge, and he's like talking to him like the guy won't let us in. And so he's like, give the guy the phone. So we give the security guard the phone, and Jorge talks to him and tells him, these guys are cool, let them in. And you'd expect it. Here's the owner, here's the boss telling you to let these guys in, and you have been stonewalling us for the last half hour. You would think that this guy would be a bit apologetic, like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, blah, blah. This guy would have none of that. He's not sorry. He has no remorse. He has no compunction about like having us wait and like making us suffer outside in the heat. He's just like, okay, you can go in now. So that's how, being that you're in Hawaii, you've got great access to wonderful selections of cigars there. Ah, there it is. Thank you. Crown heads. Crown heads. Yes, perfect. Yeah, he's you've really got like we used to I learned so much about cigars knowing Marvin. Like how I got to know Skip Martin from Romacraft was because I was it was 2013. I think it was April or March. I happened to just be flying in. I was in Asia and I was in Japan, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Honolulu. So I flew into Honolulu for a couple of days. And I called up Marvin. I said, "Hey, man, I'm in town." He's like, "Oh, we're having an event with this new cigar brand called Romacraft at the Waikiki Yacht Club." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm a member at the Waikiki Yacht Club." So I was like, "Oh, this is perfect." So I joined them for the event. And one of the friends of ours that lived there at the time, he lives in Texas now, Wendell Choi. Every Friday, for lunch, he would have the guys come over and have cigars and steaks, and we would all gather. And so since Skip was in town, Skip came too, and we all sat around and talked cigars, and that's how I got to meet. So I've met a lot of people. I met Pete mainly through Marvin, and then Skip. So, like I said, really great resource for wonderful cigars for you to try. Dev says I need to go down to RFU. You need to go like today. Go there this afternoon after you get off of here. Brian says, "Hey, are all of us invited to the thing next week where you're going to see?" Oh, I don't know. I can ask. It's not going to be at the thing I'm going to see at Georgia is not going to be at Capitol. So I'll have to ask. Tony says, private reserve Corona border with the ripple on the end. Ah, okay, that's what. Okay. All right. So that was that. I'm going to say we're still the same for the 8.5s for flavor and body, which gives us another 17, 75, 10, 60, 75. Now, burn and draw, I think, was excellent. Consistency, excellent. So we got it. Now, overall, I'm going to say 8.75 because we've got, a lot of different. Oh, there we go. So as you can see here, we've got a good amount of scores. Total score for today's cigar, the Preakness 150 from Stolen Thrones is 87.5 points. So a very good score, 87.5. And Deb, you'll probably recognize this. This is very much scaled off of the style of score sheets that we use for coffee evaluation. I kind of use their format and the scoring system because I think it's a very good way to do evaluations and try to be consistent with those evaluations. Whew. All right, so there is 87.5 for the Preakness 150 from Stolen Thrones. I guess that's good for this week. We're going to be back again next week. I don't foresee any interruptions for us for the next, for the summertime. So it looks like we will be targeting right around the beginning of July 31st, somewhere right around there for our 250th gathering. So keep that in mind. I'm going to work on that this weekend and have more definitive statements for you about it by next Thursday. So, all right. So that's pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Great to have you guys here on the Thursday Night Hang. As always, back again next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, if you're not busy, I do the morning coffee Q&A live stream on the main channel, Ono Coffee channel here on YouTube. So if you have time to join us, come join us there. But other than that, there's Dev's. Dev's going to be joining us there too. Good. All right. So hope you have a wonderful week out there, and see you next time.